Greetings, folks, and welcome to the Electromaker show. This is your midweek roundup of all things Maker and embedded and lovely. Now, this week we have some really exciting news from Microsoft regarding right to repair. Basically, it seems like they are in, along with some fairly cool projects, a couple of really awesome funding website things, and of course, a good old mystery box contest. So with all of that to get through, let's get on with the show. Now, we're starting the show off with some fairly big news. The right to repair movement is something you are probably familiar with if you are a fan of this show, and I'm assuming many people who watch this show also watch Lewis Rossman's YouTube channel, the guy who repairs MacBooks. If you're not familiar, he is a MacBook repairer, famously got into a bit of a tussle with Apple about various things, which turned into a bit of a storm in a teacup, really. The fact remains, he has become one of the figureheads of the right to repair movement, and what has happened recently can only be a massive victory for that movement, because it seems like Microsoft are just on board. Now, there is always a little bit of caution to be had when it seems like a big name is doing something good. You have to wonder why they are doing it. But to be honest, even the subtitle of this article on Vice kind of maybe gives a real reason why this might be happening. Facing pressure from investors and a shifting legal environment, the PC giant has decided to make it easier for people to repair their own stuff. That essentially seems to be what is going to be happening. The article itself is absolutely worth having a read through. It is fantastically written, as a lot of stuff is on Vice, but there's a lot of links out of it as well that are definitely worth following. Now, it is early days, but this does seem like a really large victory. Bear in mind that in terms of right to repair, a few key things have happened recently. This news from Microsoft is by far the biggest one. There's also some legislation that Joe Biden passed, which seems to make it easier for certain right to repair acts to pass through American politics. I don't really understand American politics. I'll be the first to admit that. Over here in Europe, a really big thing is they're standardizing chargers. That means that all phones have to use USB-C. Power delivery is going to be the standard now. And when you pair that with the fact that the USB-C power delivery standards are changing in a way that means that they're going to be giving much more power, that's a big thing too. This is large, though, without a shadow of a doubt. And the fact that it is from shareholder pressure makes it seem a little bit more genuine. I am a very cynical person when it comes to large capitalist companies because they only do things when they are forced to by their shareholders, and that seems to be what's happening here. There's a lot to read in the article. As I say, you should definitely click through all of the links, but I think this sums it up perfectly. So this is a quote from Kelly McBee, who is the Waste Program Coordinator at As You Sow. As You Sow are who the shareholders of Microsoft were working with in order to pressure Microsoft into taking on right to repair. This is an encouraging step by Microsoft to respond to the upswell of federal and state activity in the right to repair movement, Kelly McBee, Waste Program Coordinator at As You Sow, said in the press release. Excitingly, this agreement will begin to allow consumers to repair their Microsoft devices outside the limited network of authorized repair shops, and that is key. Because the idea of right to repair is not that your things can be repaired, because technically things can be repaired now. Famously, you can take a slightly tarnished MacBook to an Apple store and they will charge you an inordinate amount to repair it while subtly pushing you to just buy a new one instead. This is massive for consumers, but it's also massive for people who want to make their living using their technical skills to repair consumer devices. Really, truly wonderful thing. I can't spend any more time on it on today's show. I could talk about this all day. There's a wealth of information about this out now because it's a huge story. But this Vice article was the first one that dropped on my mat, so that's what I will link in the description of this show. Changing the subject entirely and moving over to the Raspberry Pi Foundation. The Raspberry Pi Foundation has, it's got its own website now. This is such a small thing, I didn't even really think it was worth mentioning on the show. But yeah, Raspberry Pi has sort of split now into the foundation side of it, which is still at raspberrypi.org. And now there's the other website, which I believe is raspberrypi.com or something like that, which is where you can buy your Raspberry Pis, and that's the hardware industry side of things. Anyway, Raspberry Pi Foundation has started a really quite interesting course, which is completely free on FutureLearn, and it is learning the fundamentals of AI and machine learning with their free online course. Now, this is, as I mentioned, a completely free course on FutureLearn, and if you don't have an account, it's pretty easy to get one set up. I've actually already enrolled on this course, but just to quickly go over it, the introduction to machine learning is week 1, and it shows how this kind of works, which is essentially just a very high-level view of how it works in general, along with an example. So this is exploring the concept of classification by making your own machine learning application, again, using a fairly high-level approach. And as time goes by, it goes a little bit deeper, explaining more concepts and obviously giving you more actual things to do, which will help you learn those concepts. As someone who has tried and failed several times to sort of get their head around how I could start using AI and training models for my own projects, this I believe is a fairly good way of doing it. If the Raspberry Pi Foundation are saying, "Hey, we're pushing this free course," you're fairly sure that it's been vetted to be as friendly and as easy to follow as anything else that they are doing, at least as friendly and easy to follow as something as complex as machine learning can be. Now, the blog post on the Raspberry Pi Foundation blog in and of itself is worth reading. It gives a very nice overview both of the course and of machine learning in general and why you might want to learn a little bit more about it. And of course, it links out here to the Future Learn course itself too. As I've mentioned, it's completely free. It's very easy to sign up to, and it starts quite soon. I've already signed up for it. If you are doing the course, let me know in the comments below. Maybe we can share notes in a few shows' time and see how we're all getting on. Now, Armbian is one of our favorite operating systems here at Electromaker. Mo has written some fantastic articles on the Electromaker website on how to get it running on various different development boards. And one of the reasons that it is so good is that it works on absolutely everything. For a very long time now, if you need a general purpose lightweight Linux system for any board that you're thinking of, there will be a build of Armbian that works for it. And that's because of the hard work the Armbian team has done to make it as easy to work on pretty much everything. Like they've done a lot of work, and now after years of just giving us free release after free release, they're asking for our help. Now, I'm assuming if you watch this show, you're probably already familiar with Armbian and you know the reasons why it is worth supporting. But if not, they give a fairly compelling case as to why they are worth spending time on and worth helping just in terms of popularity and, the fact that there's one sentence here that really grabbed me. Yes, some distributions operate on the most popular single-board computers. Armbian, on the other hand, supports more than 100. And the problem is essentially, here. The core base of contributors is relatively small. Most are working during their spare time. We are struggling to address core issues these days. Who can code when issues have to be reviewed, understood, and decided upon? Who can wrangle everything and turn our living code base into a release? Who can talk to the testers and identify the bugs that matter? Put simply, Armbian needs more hands on deck. They need more people who know what they are doing, who are able to contribute and help with FOSS projects. This is something that I would love to get involved in. I have neither the programming knowledge nor the time, which it feels a bit guilty of me to sort of say, hey, look, these people need your help without pitching in to do so myself, but I honestly don't know how I could. If you are someone who thinks that you could help, Armbian seem to be good people, and it is fantastic in terms of OS support for different devices. If you would like to help them, head to this link in the description and see what you can do. And our final bit of news for this week comes from the always fantastic CNX software, and that is that a development board for Harmony OS has showed up on Banggood for around $11. Now, Harmony OS, for those who aren't familiar, is Huawei's operating system. Given all of the legal problems that Huawei have faced with various different vendors, it's hardly a surprise that they are putting their own operating system together. And of course, Huawei are still a massive name. People want to develop for them. So this is a little development board for developing using Harmony OS. There isn't all that much information about it right now, and it is based on an earlier board that I didn't actually know about, which is the High 3861. This is the High 3861 version 100, which I guess is some kind of different, something a little bit different. I know little to nothing about both Harmony OS and Light OS other than that they exist. However, this board does exist. There's links out from the CNX software article to Banggood if you would like to get your own for $10.99. And I had a little quick look at the English version of the Harmony OS documentation for setting up the environment. And it does actually seem like it's something that is followable if you are interested in getting started with this and aren't necessarily someone who has a lot of experience. I feel like with this, I don't know what I'd be able to make with it, but with the documentation that is provided, I would probably be able to get started with this board. And if I can do it, it seems highly likely that most viewers of this show, who probably spend a lot more time doing stuff rather than talking about it like I do, would be able to as well. However, if you're interested in knowing more, there is some stats and information about the boards themselves here, and I will leave a link to this CNX software article in the description of the video. Before we go on, a little bit of housekeeping. Now, if you are watching the show, you are watching it on the Electromaker YouTube channel, and that is what we have here. And if you are enjoying the show, it would mean a lot if you would subscribe to our channel. And that is this big red button here, although most likely you're watching the video itself, and so it's this big red button underneath. And as long as you are signed into any YouTube account when you click subscribe, this means it will show up in your subscriptions. That is this tab on the side here. It won't change the way you use YouTube at all particularly, but when you go to the subscriptions tab, we will be listed there, and we're much more likely to show up on your homepage if there's a new episode out. However, if you would like to know exactly when new episodes drop, you can click this little bell here and select all. If you have all of these notifications selected, you will see up here in the corner there is a little notification. When you click this, you will see, yes, there's a notification. This is actually for last week's show. And you will have a little drop down just saying that the show has gone live, and you will know more or less before anyone else that it has happened. This is just an in-browser notification. You will not get a desktop notification unless you've set your browser to give you desktop notifications, and I'm not sure why anybody would do that. And the final thing that you can do on YouTube, at least to help us, is click the like button. It may seem like an asinine thing to ask, but it does actually make quite a difference. It doesn't just let us know that you like the show, it lets YouTube know that you like it, and based on your viewing habits, it's much more likely to show it to other like-minded people if you do. Outside of YouTube, there is a far more direct way that you can support us, and that is by heading to the electromaker.io shop. As you can see from the names scrolling across the top of the screen here, there is a vast supply of people, both large and small, both hobby electronics and some a little more professional, that you can get things from in our store, along with some stuff that you may not expect. Like we feature a lot of crowd supply stuff on the show. You can actually buy crowd supply stuff directly through our store as well once it is funded, something that not a lot of people realize. And of course, if you do want to buy something, that is fantastic. If you don't have the money or don't have a project in mind right now and you just want to come and hang out, if you look under our community tab, you will find that there is a link to our Discord server just there. It's a relatively young Discord server as far as Discord servers go, but with every new person that joins, it has a much larger chance of becoming a little community where we can all share projects and ideas. Anyway, if you do choose to do any one of these things, I thank you for it. If not, it's not a problem whatsoever. This show will always remain on YouTube and free, and I will keep doing what I do regardless. Speaking of which, let's get on with the rest of the show. It is time for Funding Website Things. That is the part of this show where we talk about things that are on funding websites, hence the name of the section. And the big news this week is that the Inkplate people are back. Now, if you're not familiar, Inkplate make fantastic e-paper based displays that have an ESP32 built into them, are very easy to use, have a nice software SDK. We've actually given a couple of these away on the show, much to my chagrin. One day maybe I'll get to keep one. However, I probably should just buy one. But yes, they are now moving into colored e-ink displays, and this is a 6-color display. Now, this is a pre-launch product, as you can tell from the page. You can always sign up for more information here if you would like to know more about it. This is presumably a fairly new page, just in that I've noticed that they've accidentally still got Inkplate 6 Plus and some of the copy, which was the previous one. Anyway, that's besides the point. This is what we're really interested in here. This is the thing itself. So this is the top, obviously, with the e-ink display, and on the back here you're seeing the ESP32 chip, the micro SD card slot, and of course the USB-C connector that you can use for programming it. And there's a bunch of other stuff as well. They break out a few of the GPIO pins. If you're interested in finding out more, you can of course look at this here, and there'll be more information on this when it goes live. Needless to say, every single time Inkplate has brought something to Crowd Supply, it's done very well, and they've always delivered on their goods. So yes, I imagine this one will get funded very, very quickly indeed when it goes live. We are now moving over to Kickstarter for Mini Pupper, an open source robot operating system robot dog kit. Now, this is something that has, as you can see, it's been going for a while now. There's only a week left of the campaign, but I thought I would come to this now because by the time I saw it originally, it had already broken its goal. I mean, if you look, they wanted €8,000 to bring this thing to life, and they've made 366,000. They smashed their funding campaign goals. I wanted to come to it a little bit later to give you a last chance to dive in on this for the Kickstarter goals if you would like them, because it really is quite an impressive little dog, and there's something about it in the approach they've taken to creating it that I find quite nice and quite refreshing. But yes, in short, look at it. It's a mini pupper. It's a mini pupper that's got a little bit of that Boston Dynamics vibe, although of course there's no copyright issues here, I don't think. This is just a similar design. I think any dog can look a little bit like this, and most robot dogs are going to look like this because this is obviously the form factor that works. But you can see it has the spinning laser detector on the top, the same that you'll find in many robot vacuum cleaners. It has the cameras on the front. I believe they are dual cameras that do some depth sensing. There's a lot more information, and there's a lot of ways that you can turn this into your own thing. But one of the things about it that will immediately appeal to many people is that it is Raspberry Pi powered. Therefore, it's using hardware and presumably some kind of software that you already are familiar with. So here's something I really like about the project. They use a custom servo along with a few custom parts in order to make this thing work. And if you really want to, you can buy just that custom version of it. For €240, you get the Early Bird Research Basic Kit. Now, there's only one of those left, but there's another version of that you can get. And it gives you just the custom parts they created to make the robot. The rest you can source yourself or 3D print, which I think is a really refreshing approach, given that most people are trying to sell you complete kits as a way of making profit. And of course, I'm sure they're going to make a huge amount of this because of how well this Kickstarter has done. But I just thought that was a kind of nice approach. Now, you can see here there is a chart with all of the different rewards on it, and the Research Basic Kit was what I was just mentioning, which is just the bare minimum you can get to get it going. Quite nice here as well is that they just listed out in plain language what the different prices are going to be, and these early bird prices really do make a massive difference in terms of how much you're going to be spending. At the other end of the scale, if you want the full mini Pupper, which is everything that that is part of the project, and it is already pre-assembled, you can get that for 564. Although here, in fact, if you look on the side, interestingly, that's in dollars. That'll be why. Yep, 508 euros for the early bird full mini Pupper. And that's an insanely low price for what seems like such a good robot dog. Obviously, I haven't had my hands on one of these. I just don't know. It's worth reading this page through if you are interested in it. There's a few things that you do need to know ahead of time about things like the camera module and the LiDAR module. The camera module isn't actually included in the system. But yeah, just what a wonderful little Pupper, what a nice little robot dog. And by the time you watch this, it will be getting dangerously close to the end of their Kickstarter campaign. So if you are interested in getting one, I'd head to the page now and making an early bird pledge, because you're going to be saving a bunch of money compared to the main price. It is time once again for the mystery box competition. I don't know why I said that so creepily. It's not quite Halloween yet, is it? This is the mystery box. As you can see, it says mystery on it, and it's given to us by the wonderful people at Mauser.com. The mystery box competition is one of the most simple competitions that I could think of. Basically, everyone that leaves a comment on any one of our videos is entered automatically, and every week I reach into this mystery box full of stuff that I don't know what's in here either, by the way. I try and keep it a secret. I occasionally get stuff spoiled, but I try and keep it as secret as possible. And I pull out a development board I have never seen before in my life from NXP. Hang on, let me put the box down. The LPC8N04 development board. It's a really interesting looking thing. I don't know how well you'll be able to see. I mean, obviously we'll look into it more in a moment, but this is a really interesting looking board. It looks like it has two coin cell battery ports on it. And this is sealed, a nice sealed bag. Okay, I'm not going to bother trying to open that, although if I kind of hold it up, you might be able to get a rough idea as the size we're talking about here. But let's see if I can find a little bit more information on this fascinating little board. Is that an LED array? Oh, wow, it's got like a microbit-esque LED array on it. Okay, sorry, waffle. Let's find some more information about this thing. Okay, here it is, and it is a super interesting little board. This isn't like anything really we've given away before, as far as I can tell. So this is essentially a little NFC-capable pair of boards. That's why there's two coin cell battery things on here. Like many boards of its type, this little line down the middle is right here. I realized my mouse wasn't visible. My mouse up here. This is where you can snap it in half and have it as two separate parts, which can be powered separately. Which I kind of find to be quite a fun idea. And it is an NFC board, which means the chip itself, the LPC8N04, is an ARM Cortex M0 Plus based MCU. It is NFC enabled, and this is the development board for learning about it. So taking a quick look at it, as mentioned, here are the two connectors for coin cell batteries. Of course, it can be powered via USB as well. And on the top side, there is a little array of LEDs here. It also has a surface-mounted PWM speaker with an amplifier as well. So this thing can be used for kind of scrolling text or some kind of indicator, and it can make sounds as well. And I had a quick shufty through at some of these video things, and I found this to be super cool. This is the example app that comes with it. And this is showing that you can, in the app, you can write what text you want to scroll across this screen here. So you add the text to the app, and then the idea is you hold the board to your phone and it will communicate via NFC what this will do. It's essentially a really inventive and kind of different little NFC development board, something I've never really come across before. Anyway, just quickly, let's have a look at the technical and functional specifications, as they call it. As I mentioned, the microcontroller already, it has onboard debug probe, which is essentially the same that comes, I think, with a lot of the different NXP boards. It allows you to work via USB, both in terms of programming and debugging. A surface mount speaker with an amplifier for PWM sound-based output. That's super interesting. There aren't that many boards with those surface mount speakers on. Supports energy harvesting for operation without battery or no external power connection. That's super interesting. I wonder how that works. Anyway, this is not for me to find out. We have a prize now. It is now time for us to pick our prize winner. And your mystery box prize winner this week is Pixel Waster, who left a comment on last week's video talking about the Dial A for Arduino project. That's where they use the rotary phone thing with the Arduino in order to actually take the numbers as an old rotary phone dial worked. And it's saying you could use it with the phone bell ringer, and it would be a cool POTS intercom, which I think is a really interesting thing, really interesting idea for a project. But anyway, congratulations. We'll be in touch with you as how we can get this super unique little development board out to you. If you do make something fun with it, please do let me know. We'll be closing out this week's show by looking at a few projects from this week that grabbed my attention, along with that Andreas Spiess video I mentioned at the start of the show. But we're beginning with an Arduino laser first-person shooter, but it's actually in real life. You're firing a laser. I'll just show you. So this Hackaday blog is about this laser pointer game with the Arduino at the core, and the idea is relatively simple in a way, although using so many simple parts to make an actual functional game is something that I always find kind of fantastic. But yes, this is a nice blue box, and at the top of the blue box there are 5 blue LEDs, and depending on which one lights up, you are required to shoot the light-dependent resistor mounted below that LED. There are 5 light-dependent resistors as well. And then there is an LCD screen that says incoming ships, which is presumably the idea behind the game. You are protecting the mothership from incoming ships. And then other than that, there's just a start button and a power button and what looks like an external speaker port as well. But it is really amazing how simple but effective this is. It's using simple parts that show up in most Arduino hobby kits and is turning it into a functional game that anyone can make. Now, I will link this Hackaday article because it is certainly worth reading in order to learn how this thing works. But this is actually the brainchild of Mirko Pavlevsky, whose name I may have pronounced terribly wrong. And on his YouTube channel, it goes through all of the parts required to make this and how it all works. There's a nice view of what is going on inside. So the video goes on to give a full demonstration of it as well as the creative process. I won't show all of that here. I'd prefer you go and watch the video itself for that. But yes, it's just a wonderful idea, taking something incredibly simplistic and making something that retains its simplicity but was a very complicated way to get there. I'm not explaining this very well. Maybe you should just go and watch the video instead. Now, the RTL8720 is a chip that we talked about a little while ago on the show. It is a fairly cheap MediaTek chip that is a 5 GHz Wi-Fi capable chip that I did not realize at the time worked with the Arduino IDE. And the always fantastic Andreas Spiess has a video on this. And I will go into very little more detail other than saying that the title is very apt. Riddles is what this chip seems to give, and watching Andreas struggle with it for 16 minutes in order to get anything to work is just incredible. However, as always, he has done the hard work so that we don't have to. It is always fantastically explained, and if you are interested in getting one of these boards yourself, they are only available, as far as I know, through AliExpress so far. There are links here in the bottom of the video in order to get one, and they are currently selling for pretty cheap. In fact, if you get the board itself, it's $749, which is not so bad for the first 5 GHz compatible little development board like this. But yes, this is a fantastic video that takes you through all of the frustrations that Andreas had trying to get this board going, with his trademark deadpan humor as well, which is something I quite enjoy. And if you are interested in getting the board, it will be indispensable for you. It is also very entertaining just watching Andreas bang his head against this thing until he makes it work, which he almost always does. Are we done now, Andreas? We are never done. We are never done. Now, we featured Iran Fiat on the show some time ago with a really inventive mod they'd done to the Atari 2600. Rather than destroy it in a way that means it can't be used anymore, they are doing some fairly clever things here. They're using the original project, I should say, that we featured on the show before, uses the original Atari controller, but it just listens to the way that it interacts with the Atari, then uses emulation on the Raspberry Pi to send it to a screen. Now, Iran has now taken this project one step further and added motion controls to original Atari games. The way this works is fascinating to me. It's really worth watching this video just to see the way it all fits together, and it's a really inventive way of thinking how you can combine old technology with new technology in non-destructive ways. Now, the video goes into a lot more detail than I'm going to have time to go into now. I suggest you go and watch all of it, but this is the main thing that you're probably wanting to see. Yes, this is playing Atari games using hand gestures in order to move and shoot and all of that kind of stuff. However, as well as an example, it also gives you everything you need in order to make one yourself and goes through some of the building of it as well and how it all fits together, showing proofs of concept and things like that. Yeah, this is a really fantastic project, as I've mentioned so many times on the show before. I do love it when the old and newer worlds collide. And while retro gaming emulation tends to be quite one-dimensional, this brings a whole new way of thinking about it to it, and I really like that. Finally, in this week's show, can you think of a more perfect screen for your 3D printer than this? I have not all that much more to say about this other than it's a really lovely idea. It's fake. The person that made it even says in the comments they just literally made a boot-up screen that looks like Marlin and put some fake fan spinning stuff on the screen. But it's a nice concept, isn't it? Yeah, it would be a really nice way of cobbling together a 3D printer, maybe a custom 3D printer that uses as many salvage parts as you can get. I don't know if that's even possible. I just thought it was fun. Anyway, this is user Seal Couch on Reddit. I have no idea if they are the original person that made this project or not, but it's kind of a fun thing, and I will leave a link to it in the description of the video. So that is it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning into the Electromaker show, and thank you for all of the support you are showing us on YouTube. Also, especially thanks to all of you that are buying stuff in the Electromaker store. If you want to have a chat about the show, please do head to the comment section below or head to our Discord server. I'm always in there and I'm always checking to see if people are chatting. I keep meaning to get around to putting stuff into the ongoing projects channel because I do have a few little things cooking. As you can see, the background is slowly morphing as time goes by, and there are a few interesting little devices I'm going to be working into this setup to make filming the show a little bit easier and a little bit more embedded tech happy. Anyway, that's enough waffling for the end of the show. I hope you have a wonderful, safe and creative week, and I will see you in the next show.